You're watching Ramping Up Your English on RVTV Voices. This is segment 2 of episode 53. Our current unit is animals, and we're exploring classification so you can determine the classification of the animal on which you're writing your report. Now, what I want to do is show you a book at this time. If you think that you've chosen a subject that is a mammal that lives in North America, you might find it in this great book entitled Wild Animals of North America. The National Geographic Society is the publisher. Now, despite the general name of the title, all the animals featured here are mammals. So the book could be a source for some of the information you would find for your report. It's organized by order and family, along with interesting facts. This book has examples of National Geographic's award-winning photography. A lot can be learned by mammals, about mammals, by taking a close look at their bones. A future RVTV Voices program, Southern Oregon Classic Kids Network, or actually show, features yours truly as host. And this segment has me exploring some bones I found in the forest. Let's watch this clip about bones. Our letter of the day today is B, and that's the first letter of the word bones. I had some pretty exciting things to show you today about bones. I was hiking on a trail in a national forest, and I came across some interesting bones that were right near the trail. And this is the first one I saw, and it was nice and clean like this when I found it. And my first thought was, well, this is the face of an animal. You see how you look at you can look like there's, your eyes look through here? But closer look, it's like, well, then what are these things about, these indentions here? Well, this is not the only bone I found. So I started to look at my hypothesis and say, well, maybe this is something else. Now, here's another bone that was found near here. And this is a pretty easy bone to identify. This is a femur. Think of this as your thigh bone, that bone that goes above your knee. It's very stout bone, as you can see. And I'm looking at these joints, and I look at this joint, and there's these grooves in here, and that tells me a lot. I believe that this is where the knee was of this animal. And you see this groove right here, because I've had knee trouble myself and had some x-rays done. I think this is that groove where the patella, or the kneecap, goes back and forth. Now, the question was, what animal could this have been? So looking at these two, I thought, well, too big to be a deer. But there is an animal in the deer family that's very large called an elk. And I came to believe that these are the remains of an elk that somehow died during the winter, and our decomposers, maybe turkey vultures, maybe ravens, maybe little insects as well, had cleaned all these bones off. And I did find a third bone with it, which I believe is a tibia, which would be the bone that goes below the knee. So I have to tell you, I'm not an expert on this, but you don't have to be an expert to think in terms of science. You observe. I've observed a number of things. I've kind of measured informally of how big these are. And so the idea is, well, what do I think it is? And if I'm not sure, what ways could I find out? I could be all wrong, but I've made some important steps in my investigation about this. And I have my hypothesis of what it is. And I could take some further steps to either see if my hypothesis is true or not, if these are indeed the bones of an elk. We do have elk in the area, so it's certainly not impossible for that to happen. Now, I was doing some other hiking on another trail one time, and I found this little bone right here. And I thought, well, see how curved this is? Well, if you put it like this, you see that this could very well be a rib bone. But this would not be from an animal that has another bone this big. This was in a different place. So I figured this actually is the bone of a deer. And so it's a rib bone from a deer is my hypothesis for it. In yet another location, I found this, and I don't have any question about what this is. It's very obvious. This is part of the leg of a deer, and you can see the hoof right here, the hard hoof. And it was cut off right here, probably by a hunter. You see these kind of things in the woods once in a while. This still has the hair of the deer, so there's even more evidence here that shows what that is. So remember, our letter today is B, and B is the first letter of the word bones. There's no guarantee you'll ever find anything like this out when you're hiking, but who knows? You might find some very interesting bones if you go out and hike on the trail, and at the very least, you're going to have a great time being outside and learning about nature. I've been looking at some of the smaller bones I've been collecting for use in the classroom. So, do you recognize which bone this is? Do you know the English word for it? Part of ramping up your English is learning more specific vocabulary. As a learner at the intermediate level, you probably know the word bone. But what about the common but specific name for this one? Can you see the little teeth? This is a jawbone. And you can learn a lot by looking at the jawbone and teeth of a mammal or any animal, especially the likely diet of the animal. And we'll learn more about diet in a future episode. And we'll learn much more about mammals when we return.
Organization that's doing big-time restoration of forests and stream banks.
Hello, I'm John Lex, producer of Adventures in Education. We've featured animals that live in North America on many of our episodes of Ramping Up Your English, but soon we'll feature South American animals and African animals. Now, here's how to find additional classification information. At the top of this wildlife card, you see the information for order, family, genus, and species. Now, this information may be required if you're writing a report in an academic setting. So, whatever your class of animal is, reporting it is quick and easy. Simply write your name of the animal, not your name, but the animal name, and follow it with is a or, and then add the class. So if you want to report the other classification information, just use the form it's in the blank of blank. For example, a puma is a mammal. It's in the order of Carnivora, and the family Felidae, and the genus and species are Felix con color. That's it. You're done with classification. You've done it. So you can visit Wikipedia or an encyclopedia to find the classification of your chosen animal. And your local library has a book about the subject, I'm almost sure. It's very likely that it'll have its classification, at least the class. So in our next episode, we'll explore a mammal that has a long, close, and yet tragic relationship with people. You can watch and even download all episodes of Ramping Up Your English. Visit my website at letscreate.org to review this episode and go to the episode, it's the episode 53 page. You can watch and even download all episodes of Ramping Up Your English at archive.org/details/RogueTV. Use the search box by entering Ramping Up Your English. You'll find all the episodes there. Ramping Up Your English can be seen in Ashland on Channel 15 on the Ashland Home Network and in the rest of Southern Oregon on cable channel 182. Showtimes are 8 o'clock a.m. on Mondays and 7:30 p.m. on Thursdays. Showtimes will vary in other areas. Check your local public access and education stations. I want to thank my director, Denise Ross, and my talented and loyal crew, and I want to thank you, our viewers. All of you have helped make this program an award winner. Join us next time for Ramping Up Your English. I'm John Letts.
You've been watching Ramping Up Your English, a support program for intermediate level English language learners. Learn more. Visit our website at letscreate.org. You can also watch or download today's program at archive.org/details/ROGUE-TV. Join us next time on RVTV Voices for Ramping Up Your English.